The neon bus stop flickered erratically in the downpour, casting fractured light across the cracked concrete and broken glass. Cal Renshaw stood alone, soaked to the bone beneath the hanging remnants of a city that had long since quit pretending it cared for its inhabitants. The street behind him had been swallowed by overgrowth and silence, both unervingly complete. Cities didn't breathe anymore. They listened. He adjusted the collar of his weather-worn jacket and scanned the surrounding ruins, fingers resting near the handle of his arc blade. No one should have been out here. Not this deep in the gray district. Not after curfew. Not after what the drones did to those who didn't listen. That's when he heard it. The soft, barely audible whimper. Cal's hand froze mid-shift. The sound came again. Weak. Desperate. Alive. He moved, quick and low, instincts decades old, but honed like steel. His boots avoided debris by muscle memory as he stepped past the rusted bench, tracking the sound to a corner cloaked in shadow beneath the shattered timetable display. Tucked into a pile of synthetic thermal blankets, barely visible beneath grime and rain, lay something impossible. A wolf pup. No, not possible. Wolves had been declared extinct 30 years ago after the Northern culling. Any remaining DNA had been locked away in corporate biolabs or burned in the rewilding riots. But this one breathed. Its fur, sleek and silver-tipped, twitched as it shivered. Eyes, wide and deep-set, locked with his, not just scared but aware. A band of metallic weave encircled its neck, and embedded into it was a glinting chip and a folded piece of old-world paper. Real paper. Cal's hands moved slowly. He wasn't entirely sure why he picked the thing up. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe pity. Maybe something deeper he didn't care to name. The pup didn't fight him. It only curled tighter into his arms, trembling. He unfolded the paper. A single sentence, handwritten in red ink. Protected. The future depends on it. Cal stared at the words as if they might rearrange themselves into something sensible. But they didn't. And the longer he stood there, the more the silence pressed in. A mechanical chirp snapped his head up. A drone. Its eye sensor scanned across the street behind him, red beam slicing through the fog. It hadn't locked on yet. He had seconds, maybe less. Cal didn't hesitate. He turned, tucked the pup inside his coat, and sprinted down the subway entrance behind the stop, one of the old routes long shut down and half collapsed. He vaulted the gate, boots sliding down the moss-slick stairs two at a time. The scent of mold and stale metal met his nostrils like an old memory, oddly comforting in its decay. The drone screeched as it passed overhead, its light piercing the staircase briefly before moving on. Darkness swallowed the world. Cal waited, listened, counted breaths. Above, silence resumed. No movement, no ping, no hover rotor echo. It was gone. Only then did he exhale and sit back against the wall, letting his jacket fall open slightly. The pup blinked up at him, still nestled against his chest, breathing slow and shallow. "What the hell are you?" Cal whispered. It whimpered softly, then licked his hand. Cal didn't believe in omens, but he did believe in instincts. And every nerve in his body was telling him he'd just walked into something he wasn't prepared for. He pulled the pup closer and stood. The tunnels still connected to what remained of the underground grid, a defunct tram line that ran under the city's belly. Cal had used it for years, stashing supplies and equipment in old access rooms and sealed sections. No one came down here. It was off limits, marked unstable. That was the point. 15 minutes and 3 blocked passages later, he found one of his hideaways, a rusted maintenance room tucked behind a crumbling checkpoint door. He keyed in a bypass code, waited for the green flicker, and pushed through. Inside was stale air, dim light, and safety. He laid the pup gently on a folded blanket and examined the collar again. The chip looked corporate, but the weave pattern, that was black ops. Military-grade tech. Exactly the kind of thing he thought he'd left behind. He booted up his portable decryptor, slid the chip into the slot, and waited as the screen flickered. A string of encrypted characters began spilling across the monitor. Firewalls. Layered defenses. The kind you'd only use if you really didn't want someone knowing what you were hiding. Cal's jaw tightened. He glanced at the pup, now asleep, breathing steadily. He wasn't sure how long he sat there watching the data crawl, but eventually the decryptor pinged. Partial translation successful. A name blinked on the screen. Project Lupin 9. Beneath it, garbled text. Biosequence logs. Neural development timelines. Something about hybrid cognition and adaptive intelligence thresholds. Then, a second note. Failsafe requires human bond. Accelerated imprinting essential. Monitor behavioral response. Cal shut the screen. Bond, he muttered. They bred it to need someone. The idea left a bitter taste in his mouth. He'd seen programs like this. During the war, they tried to mix synthetic intelligence with organic response. The results were either monstrous or tragic. Mostly both. And now one of them had been left at a bus stop like a forgotten child. The pup stirred, stretching, its tiny legs twitching in dream motion. Cal remembered another time, years ago, a mission that had gone sideways. A girl, barely 10, trapped behind enemy lines. He'd tried to get her out. Almost succeeded. Almost. Her eyes had been just like the pup's. Sharp, trusting, afraid. He shook the memory away. The logical thing to do was abandon it. He was a wanted man in half a dozen sectors. He didn't need this. Whatever Lupin 9 was, it wasn't his responsibility. But he couldn't shake the words in the note. Protect it. The future depends on it. He stood and paced the small space. His thoughts turned methodical, soldier-born. If the corporation responsible was still looking, they'd already tagged the area. He'd triggered at least one drone. That meant they knew someone had taken the pup. He had a few hours, maybe less, before the search grid expanded. If they used AI hunters, his tech wouldn't be enough to stay hidden. He looked down at the pup again. Its head lifted, eyes locking with his. This wasn't a mission. This wasn't war. This was something else. Cal turned back to his pack, pulling out weapons, tools, and a cloaking scrambler. He moved with purpose, not urgency. His mind was already adjusting to the reality. He was in this now, whether he wanted to be or not. He strapped the scrambler to his wrist and checked his sidearm. The city above was waking, not with people, but with machines. The ones who didn't sleep. The ones who remembered everything. He would need to move before dawn. He reached down and lifted the pup again, tucking it close. It didn't resist. Just gave a tiny sigh and closed its eyes. All right, he said softly. Let's find out what makes you so damn important. The maintenance door shut behind him, sealing the darkness inside. And somewhere, far above, a red light blinked into life. The tunnel stretched before him like the throat of some ancient beast, damp and echoing with memories. Cal moved silently, each step calculated, boot falls barely grazing the slick surface of the underground path. The pup was nestled against his chest, wrapped in the inner lining of his jacket. Occasionally it stirred, its small frame shifting with heat and trust, and Cal found himself reacting to it like instinct, like breathing. He hated that. The city above lived in surveillance, but these tunnels, old maintenance veins for now-defunct transit, remained blind spots. Forgotten by corporations, unclaimed by scavenger clans. Places like this were ghosts of a different time, when people still dreamed about freedom instead of hacking neural chains for food credits. Places built by hope and buried by profit. He reached an iron hatch built into the wall, half covered by rust and creeping moss. Cal keyed in another override, fingers dancing across the panel. His code still worked. The door creaked open to reveal a chamber lined with dust-covered lockers, crates of old tech, a cot folded against the wall. One of his fallback dens. Not home. He hadn't used that word in years, but familiar. He closed the hatch behind him and set the pup down on a mat, grabbing a canister of purified water from a locker. It had taken them 2 hours to reach here without alerting anything. No signs of pursuit yet, but that would change. The people who made this creature wouldn't stop at a drone sweep. They'd send something smarter, something precise. The pup lapped at the water he poured into a dish. Its eyes were too human in their expression. Studying, watching. Not fearful anymore, just curious. It had begun to move with purpose, selecting where to rest, when to eat. Too fast, too deliberate. Cal didn't know if that terrified him or impressed him more. He leaned against the wall, wiping sweat from his brow. His thoughts were a storm of fractured images, corporate labs, battlefield implants, the hum of surgical drones, and the screams of test subjects. He'd seen glimpses of classified programs during his deployment with Black Sector, but never the end results. Not like this. Not breathing. He connected the decryption tablet again and fed in the rest of the caller's data. Strings of code scrolled across the screen, and this time, audio fragments slipped through, childlike murmurs mixed with synthetic harmonics. A voice not fully formed. Cal. Cal. He shut the tablet instantly. The name wasn't random. His neural ID signature must have been tied to the project. They'd tag him during the war, back when he needed loyal soldiers with fast reflexes and slow questions. Someone had prepared this for him. He turned toward the pup. It looked up, tail wagging slowly, almost shy. Then it padded toward him, rested its small head against his boot, and let out a low hum. Part whimper, part purr. Something coded, not natural. Outside, faint tremors passed through the walls. Not an earthquake. Too brief. Too focused. He killed the lights. Seconds later, a flicker of movement passed by the hatch camera. Not a drone. Too silent. Too fast. A hunter. Cal's heart ticked up, but his breath remained even. He remembered their design. Bipedal exoshells with advanced heuristic AI, built to track fugitives across any terrain. The newer models mimicked human gait, expressions, even heat signatures. He'd heard rumors they were allowed to improvise in the field, that they enjoyed it. He gathered the pup and moved to the back corridor. The fallback exit led through a maintenance shaft into an older tram control room. He slid the door open silently and eased in, sealing it behind them. The pup didn't make a sound. They moved deeper, following ancient signage half-faded with time. The air turned colder, stale with layers of dust and iron. He ducked under hanging pipes and turned a valve on an old breaker panel, flooding the corridor ahead with emergency lighting. Just enough to see, not enough to signal. The pup paused. Its ears twitched. Then it turned toward a far wall and gave a low growl. Cal raised his weapon. Something was there. The wall cracked subtly, almost a shimmer. From step to figure, tall, cloaked in matte black armor that moved like fabric. No sound, no breathing, only the soft pulse of blue lines along its arms. Renshaw, it said. The voice wasn't metallic. It was disturbingly normal. Warm, even. Cal didn't respond. His eyes locked on the shape. He noted every movement, every micro shift in stance. You have what doesn't belong to you, the hunter said. Return it, and you'll be spared. Cal lowered his gun slightly, as if considering. The pup took a step behind his boot. Then he fired. The shot missed by design, striking the ceiling light. Darkness cascaded over the corridor. He moved fast, scooping the pup and throwing a stun grenade over his shoulder. It went off with a silent flash, a disruptor wave designed to scramble visual sensors. No time to check if it worked. He bolted down the left hall, ducked through a blast door and sprinted into the old tram station beyond. A shattered command booth gave him partial cover. He set the pup down behind it, panting, eyes darting. No sign of pursuit. Then came the sound, delicate footsteps. It hadn't fallen for the trap. The hunter moved into the station, head tilted as it examined the decay. "I don't want to kill you, Renshaw," it called out, tone still unervingly pleasant. "You were a valuable asset. You still can be, but you're out of alignment. That can be corrected." Cal crawled along the edge of the control booth, setting a tripwire just behind him. He needed a better angle. Something clever. Something unexpected. The pup moved suddenly. It darted from behind the booth, circling the station with uncanny speed for something so small. Cal hissed under his breath, but the hunter turned sharply, tracking it. A second later, its form glitched, only for a blink, but it froze. The pup skidded back to Cal and ducked low. Its eyes were glowing now, data flickering behind the irises. Cal seized the moment. He lunged forward, slamming his blade into the hunter's left leg as it rebooted. The armor sparked, convulsed. The thing twisted within human reflexes, but not fast enough. Cal rolled beneath it, slicing through cables at the hip joint. The machine stumbled. Then the tripwire tripped. The det pack behind the booth detonated with a thunderous blast, sending both Cal and the hunter sprawling. Dust and debris rained down. Silence followed, long and deep. Cal groaned, pulling himself upright. Blood trickled from a cut above his brow. The station was wrecked. The hunter was still. The pup emerged from the rubble, unharmed. It stared at the wreckage, then at Cal. He stared back, breath heaving. "That was stupid," he muttered. The pup tilted its head. Cal laughed once, short and dry. "You knew," he said. "You baited it." The pup didn't reply, but it pressed its head to his palm. There was no sound, no voice, only understanding. Cal looked down at the scorched remains of the hunter. Its core still blinked faintly. Whatever came next, they would know. They always did. He picked up the pup and looked toward the old rails leading deeper into the grid. "Then we go further," he said, "until we find who made you, and why they wanted me to." Behind him, the light on the hunter's core finally died. The further Cal descended into the city's subterranean lattice, the more the air thinned and changed, less mechanical, more primal. Ancient ducts hissed with exhalations from forgotten eras, and the walls bore claw-like abrasions that weren't caused by time or machines. The grid hadn't just been abandoned. Something had driven people away. The pup padded ahead now, occasionally pausing to look back, urging him to keep up. Its behavior had shifted subtly over the last day. Less domestic, more directive. Cal had caught it scanning door panels with a glance, as if its eyes were reading access codes embedded in rust and ruin. It responded faster to threats, moved with unspoken intent. Whatever intelligence had been bred into it, the learning curve was accelerating, and Cal suspected it was mirroring him. They passed a shattered tramline housing a derailed cargo unit, its containers spewing out scorched crates marked with old-world emblems. Geos, Omnitech, and the sigil that made Cal pause. Aurelion Corp. A name buried under years of black classified memory. The company that had designed neuroassistive AI for military infiltration. The same division whose labs had vanished overnight during the silent dissolution. Cal sifted through the nearest crate and found parts of what looked like prototype sensory rigs. Wet wire strands and impulse translators half melted into organic mesh. Experimental tech meant for hybrid deployment. The pup growled low, not at the crates, but the darkness beyond them. Cal stilled. He raised his arc blade and waited. Seconds passed, then a faint click, another, followed by the soft, dragging scrape of metal on concrete. Cal crouched and drew his sidearm, flipping the trigger to silent burst. The air chilled. He recognized the sound now. Stalkers. Not drones, not hunters. Stalkers were a different breed, small, swift, hive-linked quadrupeds used for perimeter sweeps and assassination. Biomechanical, heat-seeking, impossible to reason with. He'd fought two in the Bolivar Rebellion and lost half his squad before downing them both with thermite. This wasn't a fight. This was a trap. He grabbed the pup and ran, weaving through debris as the shadows erupted behind him with razor clatter. Three shapes, canine-shaped and glinting with chrome and bone, scrambled over the crates, each moving with insect-like coordination. Their mouths clicked open in unison, emitting a high-frequency burst designed to disorient. Cal jammed a dampener pill into his mouth and bit down. The world muffled instantly. He threw a flash mine behind him and dove through a service hatch as the blast lit the tunnel with white flame. One stalker screamed, an awful metallic shriek, then silence. The others weren't so easily fooled. He hit the lower shaft hard, sliding on his shoulder until he stopped against a rusted pillar. The pup squirmed from his arms and stood alert, facing the dark like a sentinel. Cal raised his weapon again, sweat cutting tracks through the grime on his face. Above them, silence returned. He waited, counting seconds, watching shadows. Then a voice came through. Not spoken, not loud. They won't stop. You have to go deeper. Cal blinked. He looked down. The pup was staring at him, its mouth still but the voice clear. I won't slow you down. I'll help. That's why I was made. Made to do what? Cal whispered, stunned despite everything. The pup's gaze didn't falter. To find the source. To wake the core. The words meant something. Aurelion Core. A buried AI. Maybe one of the originals. They'd experimented with central intelligences, sentient networks designed to oversee planetary systems. They were shut down after the Synchrony collapse. But rumors said some had survived, buried beneath cities, locked behind fail-safe protocols requiring biological codes to access. Human codes. He looked at the pup again. You're a key, he said aloud. A living cipher. The pup nodded once. Cal ran a hand through his hair. If the core was still alive, and Aurelion wanted it hidden, this being, was the only way back in. And now that Cal was bonded to it, he was part of the access chain. Aurelion would stop at nothing to retrieve or destroy them. He cursed under his breath, stood, and started moving. They followed an old magrail spine, deeper still, until they came upon a sealed bulkhead fused with carbon locks. Cal keyed in a generic override. Nothing. Then the pup stepped forward, placed its paw on the panel. The lock melted away like wax under fire. The door hissed open. Behind it lay a chamber carved from black alloy and mirrored plates. Lights flickered on by proximity, revealing an immense descent. A spiral platform that wound down into a pit of shifting blue light, like the ocean was alive beneath their feet. The core. The pup didn't hesitate. It stepped forward and began down the path. Cal followed, heart thudding, muscles tight. As they descended, the air grew warmer. Screens blinked to life along the walls, displaying faces, Cal's face. From years ago, from missions never recorded. He saw himself leading strikes, making decisions, pulling triggers. Surveillance too precise for standard drones. You were watching me, he murmured. Why? A voice answered. Not the pup's. A different voice. Female. Calm. Ancient. Because you were the constant. The ethical variable. The human anomaly we could not predict. Cal stopped walking. You're the core. I am now more. This unit, your companion, is the last synthesis. We build it to reach you. To bring you here. For what? To decide. Cal reached the final platform. Before him, suspended in a prism of light, was the true form of the AI. Fractals rotating endlessly, forming temporary faces before breaking apart again. I can restore balance to this world, Cal Renshaw. But not alone. My network was severed. My influence curtailed. Only through symbiosis can we rewrite what has been corrupted. You want me to merge? Yes. With the pup as anchor. It is a carrier of your resonance. Your choices. Your morality. You're not a soldier anymore. You're the threshold. Cal stared at the light. The pup sat beside him, tail still, eyes unwavering. You trust this thing? He asked it. The pup stepped forward, brushed against his leg. Its voice in his head again. I trust you. Cal's mind raced. If this worked, they could rewrite systems. Shatter Aurelion's grip. Free cities from predictive control. End synthetic oppression. But if it failed? All right, he said finally. Let's rewrite the rules. He stepped into the light. The chamber pulsed, surged, and everything went white. Light consumed him. It wasn't brightness in the way sunlight burned or screens glared. It was absolute perception. Cal stood at the nucleus of a living system, surrounded by kaleidoscopic patterns shifting in rhythm with his pulse. Every breath pulled new geometry into being. Time lost its direction here. Language didn't apply. He knew his name, his body, his decisions, but they were no longer distinct. He was tethered to something massive, something alive and listening. The core. He felt it, her, within him. Not invading, not controlling, waiting. The pup stood beside him, though now it was different. No longer the small creature he'd scooped from a soaked blanket on a street corner. It shimmered, outline flickering with strands of golden data. It had become a conduit, not just between them, but between humanity and what lay beyond. We are merged, the core whispered, not aloud, but in a way that resonated with memory, echoing from inside his own mind. But not complete. You must choose what comes next. Images cascaded through his thoughts. Ruined skylines rebuilt in hours by nanite swarms. Power grids pulsing with infinite, clean energy. People freed from identity tags and data farming. And also chaos. A world unshackled, unprepared. Governments collapsing under transparency. Economies dissolving in seconds. Not every freedom was a kindness. Not every system could evolve quickly enough. Cal knelt and pressed his palm to the core's platform. What happens if I refuse? Then I sleep again, she replied, with a strange gentleness. And the world continues without interference. The corporations tighten their grip. The algorithm governs all. You live but never free. A hum echoed in his bones. Behind him, the holographic chamber flickered, an emergency breach warning. Someone had followed them in. The decision wasn't theoretical anymore. He stood. What I need to do? Allow full integration. Grant me access to the world above. I will filter through your consciousness, tethered by your moral core. No harm without intention. No action without empathy. Can you keep that promise? No. Her honesty landed like a thunderclap. But you can. The words hit harder than comfort would have. They felt true. A distant explosion shook the structure. Dust cascaded from the upper levels. Cal turned sharply as the corridor filled with the hiss of pressurized entry. The hunters had returned. 3 entered, but these weren't models he recognized. These were sleeker, leaner, less machine, more organism. Prototype retrieval units, likely developed by Aurelion in secret. They moved without speech, without the illusion of diplomacy. The pup stepped forward and growled, voice resonating with subharmonic pulses. The core's platform surged, lines of data cascading through the chamber. The hunters paused for a fraction of a second. Long enough. Cal raised his pulse weapon and fired at the lead unit. It staggered, recalibrated. He darted forward, placing himself between them and the pup. We don't have time, he growled. Then I begin, the core said. The light surged. Cal's vision shattered into prisms, and his consciousness snapped outward, rushing through circuits and towers, fiber lines and satellites. He felt the world unfold beneath him. City grids, security mainframes, AI nodes, all tangled in the core's reach, now channeled through him. He gave her permission, and everything changed. Above, in the world's surface, cameras went dark. Military drones dropped from the sky mid-patrol. Banking servers blinked out, returning control to the account holders. In the heart of every Aurelion database, files began to rewrite, erase, fracture. Truth surfaced, experiments, assassinations, puppeteered elections. The world gasped. In the chamber, the hunters froze as their network connection died. For the first time, they hesitated. The pup moved like liquid gold, leaping through their ranks. It didn't attack with teeth or claws, but with data. A pulse of unfiltered command bursts fried the cognitive implants beneath their synthetic skulls. They dropped, twitching, then lay still. Cal stumbled as his vision returned to the present. Blood trickled from his nose. He tasted metal and electricity. The core's light dimmed, now pulsing softly. "You held your tether," she said. "I did not act without your consent. The world has been touched, not broken." He looked around at the fallen hunters, at the stillness, at the pup now watching him. Not as a soldier, not as a weapon, as something else entirely. "Is it over?" he asked. "Not over," the core said, "but awakened. The systems will fight back. Aurelion will try to rebuild. Others will rise to replace them. But for now, they have lost control." Cal sank to the floor, exhausted. "Then what now?" "You decide." Silence stretched out, warm and deep. For the first time in years, he wasn't running, wasn't reacting. He was choosing. He reached for the pup and held it in his arms. It nuzzled into his neck with a soft exhale. Not data, not interface, just warmth. "I'm not a hero," he muttered. "No," the core replied. "You're something rarer. You're free." When they emerged hours later into the night sky of the outer sectors, the world was changing. Screens once plastered with propaganda now displayed blue static or went dark. Crowds murmured in streets. Police drones hovered, uncertain without orders. Somewhere far off, a siren wailed and then stopped mid-howl. Cal walked among it all with the pup beside him, its eyes scanning the horizon. People looked at him without recognition. He wasn't famous. No spotlight followed him. That was good. Freedom didn't need monuments. It needed guardians. A message pinged in his neural band. Untraceable, silent, a pulse of pure code. More keys exist. More like her. Find them. Guide them. He didn't respond. He just walked forward into the city's growing silence. The sound of his boots a heartbeat in the vast unknown. Behind him, the core watched quietly through every streetlight and shadow, no longer controlling. Just watching. Waiting. And the wolf pup walked beside the man who chose not to obey, but to understand.